Good morning. Good morning and welcome to First Unitarian Universalist Church, our Sunday service online. I'm Reverend Dr. Marion Stewart. It is my pleasure to serve this congregation as senior minister. I'll tell you what, this daylight savings time, good morning. I was driving in and the sun was rising and it was a huge, bright orange ball of fire coming up over the horizon, peeking through the trees, and then rising on up into its journey. It was like I remembered when my mother used to come by the bedrooms in the morning, rise and shine. And this morning the sun just rose and shined, and I hope everyone is awake on this wonderful morning. This is the day we've been given. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Good morning. As we begin our time together, we acknowledge the land which holds us. It has been inhabited for thousands and thousands of years. We know some of the names of the people who inhabited the land before us: the Adena, the Hopewell, the Miami, the Seneca, the Cayuga. And we know that these native peoples were removed violently from here to lands west of the Mississippi in 1830. It is difficult to imagine how to hold that legacy with integrity, but here we are, living, trying. All the while, the land holds us. May we be grateful, may we be thoughtful, and may we be humble. Held by this beautiful land and holding these difficult truths, I invite you to center yourselves as we listen to our prelude.
Thank you so much, Nathan. Good morning. It is so good to be with you this early morning. Today is the second Sunday for our March theme of commitment. And you guys have definitely shown your commitment by being here an hour early today, now that we have turned our clocks forward. And I hope that you have time for an afternoon nap to make up for that lost hour last night. I know my couch is certainly calling my name. My name is Kelly McNeil, and I serve as the Director of Congregational Life here at First UU. And I would encourage you now, I know many of you have already, but please check in the chat box and say hello. And if you're visiting with us this morning, we sincerely welcome you. Please let us know that you are here by filling out the visitors form on our website, and you can find a link to that in the chat box. To subscribe to our email newsletter and announcements, please fill out the connections form on our website, or you can email me to be added. And thank you to everyone who has already filled out their membership update form. If you are a member or a friend and haven't updated your information yet, please check out the link in the chat box. We really appreciate your helping us to make sure that our directory is as up to date as possible. And now I'll turn it over to Reverend Marion, who will be lighting our chalice this morning.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you so much. And just a reminder, check in with our chat box if you'd like to say hi. Let us know you're here. If you have a candle or chalice nearby, I invite you to get it now so we can light our chalice together. Our chalice lighting words this morning are by Unitarian Universalist Mark DeWolf. And these words are part of the hymn he wrote, Sing Out Praises for the Journey. Look inside, your soul's the kindling of the hearth fire. Pilgrims new, find the spirit always restless, find it in each mind and heart. Touch and hold that ancient yearning, kindling for a newfound truth. Our chalice is lit. I now invite you to sing together our opening song, Sing Out Praises for the Journey by Mark DeWolf. You've heard a few of the words. I invite you to sing it and greet the day.
Sing out praises for the journey, pilgrims we who carry on. Searchers in the soul's deep yearnings, like our forebears in their time. We seek out the Spirit's fullness in the endless human quest. Look inside your souls, the kindling of the hearth fire, pilgrims new. Find the Spirit always restless, find it in each mind and heart. Touch and hold that ancient yearning, kindling for a newfound truth. Stand we now upon the threshold, facing futures yet unknown. Hearth behind us, wayside hostel, built by those who knew wild roads. God, we hear their sacred embers carried in our minds and hearts.
I really enjoy the way that hymn combines the fire from our chalice and the joy of travel. I'm Isabel Call, your Assistant Minister of Pastoral Care, and I'm also a traveling merchant, which you'll hear about in a moment. Our Sunday school class for 7 to 12 years, Peace Pals Choir for 5 to 10 years, and our Navigators Scouting Stargazers all meet online later today. Please check the chat box or email our Director of Religious Exploration, Amber Scott, for more information. Now, dramatic reading by yours truly and our very own Shannon Flanders.
A tree stands in the middle of my village. The roots are strong and wide, and its branches spread out over the village square, offering shelter from the rain or shade from the summer sun. Its fruit is juicy, sweet, and plentiful. The people of my village love the tree. Children play beneath it and climb its lowest branches. Young people know that if you whisper your dreams to the tree, they are more likely to come true. And elders discover that their sweetest memories can be counted on when they are near the giant tree. The tree has been witness to so much. And when the breezes blow through the leaves, you can hear echoes of generations. One day, a traveling merchant, arrived in the village. He rested in the shade and ate 2 pieces of delicious fruit.
Mmm, this fruit is incredible. I would like to have some to sell in the next villages I visit. Who owns this tree?
No one owns this tree, I said. If anything, we belong to it.
Well then, if no one owns the tree, then no one will mind if I pick the fruit.
And he began to fill a basket. I mind, said I, and today I am the keeper of the tree.
What do you mean, keeper of the tree?
We each take our turn here with the tree. We could never own it. We are here as protectors, as sustainers.
That's ridiculous. This tree doesn't need you. You could just take what you need, take what you want. The tree will continue.
But I couldn't be persuaded. Sir, this tree isn't like that. We don't come here to take from it, even though we receive much. We are keepers of the tree because this is where we are nourished. This is where some of our most precious memories are, and where our people have dreamed. This is where we remember who we want to become.
Well, you may think this tree is very special, but it still doesn't need you to sit with it. That's preposterous.
Ah, the tree itself may not need me, but what of others who come by? Just this morning, I sat with a woman whose heart was heavy with worry. Had I not been here, she would have had to carry that weight alone. And then an elder came by, and we watched the birds in the branches together. And now you are here. You were confused about what the tree is and how to be with it. Imagine if you had arrived and not found anyone here to talk with you. You might have continued thinking that everything you do is all about you. Luckily for you, my friend, I'm here to let you know that when you care for the tree of life, it becomes about so much more than just you. And the merchant sat for a while in the shade, thinking about these ideas that felt new and a little challenging. As the sun went down, he picked up his basket and headed out of town, whistling a song that he hadn't thought of in years. On his way, he shared a smile with each person he met, his heart feeling strangely light and joyful. And the people of the village, they continued to sustain the tree of life, to care for one another and to share their gifts with grace and gratitude. May it be so for each of us.
The end. Whether you consider yourself a wanderer or a keeper of the tree, there is transformation possible when we encounter each other in the calm quiet under the tree's branches. We'll be returning to the tree throughout the service. Right now, we'll focus our attention on one group of dedicated tree keepers in our midst. In the upcoming video, you'll see our justice coordinator, Amanda Hayes, commissioning our Bread Network members at the virtual network member meeting last Sunday. If you're wondering what Bread is or what a network member might be, you'll find out in the video.
Today, March 7, we are virtually commissioning our Bread Network members, and this commissioning will be part of Sunday service next week. One way our congregation fulfills our mission of creating community, working for justice, and engaging diversity is by working with other congregations through Bread. Bread stands for Building Responsibility, Equality, and Dignity. Bread is a congregation-based community organization of many different religious congregations in Central Ohio. These congregations are united through Bread to research proven solutions and apply nonpartisan pressure on local decision makers to improve housing, healthcare, employment, education, and other poverty-related problems in Central Ohio. The Bread listening process can create community when we deeply engage with one another and get to know what concerns for healing our community lie heaviest on each other's hearts. Joining a Bread research team creates an opportunity to engage diversity as members of many faith communities in our city work together to find solutions. And the whole process is a way of working for justice. And a vital part of this process is for Bread Network members to invite a huge turnout from the 40 member congregations to the Nehemiah Action. With the energy of thousands of people present, watching and chanting, the work done during the whole rest of the year is empowered by the people. The names of those you see on the screen are First UU's Bread Network members. This spring, they will be working for justice by reaching out to members of First UU and asking you to attend the Nehemiah Action. There will be both park-in and virtual methods for attending. Our goal is that as many First UUers would attend the Nehemiah Action as usually attend a Sunday service. If one of them reaches out to you, I encourage you to attend. At the Nehemiah Action, you would be adding your voice to thousands of other voices to work for justice in our community. Now, each of you on this call are being commissioned to be a Bread Network member. Please raise your hand. As Justice Coordinator of First Unitarian Universalist Church, I commission you as First UU's Bread Network members. May you be loving, persistent, courageous, and thoughtful as you reach out to invite your fellow First UUers to join the Nehemiah Action. Thank you for your work for justice.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Bread. You all couldn't see them raising their hands, but our people were in that video there, receiving the commissioning. We're in the midst of the 1-year anniversary of COVID, and I want to take a moment to acknowledge how hard it is. Next Sunday, we'll spend some time reflecting on the year. I strongly encourage you to come. And please reach out to me if you need to talk. I'm here for you. If I happen to have a full schedule, I may connect you with a pastoral team member. I try my best to respond to everyone, but especially as I've been getting settled here, it's possible an email or text from you has slipped through my fingers. Please do not hesitate to reach out again. You can email, text, or call, or use our website, Joys and Sorrows Request, which connects you with other care in the congregation. And now I'll turn it over to Kelly, who will be leading our caring meditation later.
Thank you, Isabel. Our caring meditation is one of the ways we sustain the tree of life in our community. If you have had a significant event in your life recently, I invite you to put it in a few words in the chat box and select Send to Panelists. In this way, we stay in touch and allow the greater community to respond to our changing needs. I now invite you to join us in singing, "We Are Not Our Own."
We are not our own, earth forms us, human leaves on nature's growing vine, fruit of many generations, seeds of life divine. We are not alone, earth names us, past and present, peoples near and far, family and friends and strangers, show us who we are. Therefore let us make thanksgiving, and with justice willing and aware, give to earth and all things living liturgies of care. Let us be a house of welcome, living stone upholding living stone, gladly showing all our neighbors we are not our own.
We are not our own. A few years ago, I found myself on an airplane from Tennessee, where I'd been visiting my parents, to Eastern Washington, where I had been living for a year. After I landed, I would pack up my house before moving across the mountains to Seattle for a new job I expected to last a year or two before I began my professional ministry in yet another place. I didn't know yet that it would be here in Columbus, but I was already opening my heart to this moment among you. As the wheels bumped into the runway, I reluctantly stashed the book I was reading called The Wisdom of Stability, Rooting Faith in a Mobile Culture. I really enjoyed living in Spokane, and I was sad about leaving, even though I had accepted it as part of the way of things. I was on a spiritual and professional journey. I was feeling the call to ministry in a faith that makes use of the diversity of learning experiences scattered around the world by encouraging our leaders to move among them. Having grown up UU, I'd absorbed the love of exploration from well-traveled, transplanted elders. I'd lived in Indonesia and completed research in Kenya. And this next intercity move would be my 10th. And I was proud of all I'd learned everywhere. But the rapid deceleration of the plane was a visceral alarm. I felt in my body the dissonance of my life of mobility and my deep longing to put down roots. The flight attendant announced, "Welcome to Spokane, where all your dreams will come true." I thought, is this a sign? Should I stay? I had just read the wisdom of the 12th century Benedictine Anselm of Canterbury. Deathless monks are like trees transplanted so many times they forget how to put down roots, and they wither and die. There are actually a lot of ways to wither and die. Quote, "If a monk often moves from place to place at their own whim, or remaining in one place is frequently agitated by hatred of it, then they never achieve stability with roots of love. Unquote. I have to admit that there had been some whim in my early treks across the globe, but also a deep commitment to the 6th UU principle, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. My mobility was one expression of our collective commitment to seek out new wisdom and disrupt old harmful patterns. We UUs are rightly agitated by our hatred of racism, classism, and other evils lodged in our home cultures. When our soil is unhealthy, sometimes healing means leaving. But as I spun all this out in my head, it sounded defensive, like I was justifying my choices to move. Underneath all that, I realized that I was ready to come home. David Brooks writes, "Most of life is choosing what you already chose, just as all commitment making is recommitment. Our lives are stories of recommitment." Unquote. I was ready to recommit, ready to reclaim the soil I had left fallow, but I had to identify what it was I was recommitting to. Where was home? Jonathan Wilson Hartgrove, who is a white Baptist minister, wrote the book as a reflection on his commitment to Walltown, his neighborhood in Durham, North Carolina. He's not from Walltown, but from a rural community nearby. He thinks of Walltown as within the drip line of his people. Now, the drip line is the circle you can draw on the ground underneath the perimeter of the branches of a tree. We know that as wide as the branches of a tree stretch, the roots underground stretch just as wide. The drip line shows how far the roots stretch for nutrients. And if the branches stretch any further, the tree will not be able to sustain them. The branches need to stay within the drip line in order for the tree to be stable. It's hard to stay within the drip line, especially for many young people, and Unitarian Universalists are lifelong boundary pushers. Here are some of Wilson Hartgrove's words about his own struggle, read by our own Shannon Flanders.
Growing up in the place that my mom and dad loved so well, I was put off by its limits. Not only bored by the ordinariness of my hometown, I was also angry at its prejudices, convinced that the racism I witnessed in our church steps was a consequence of folks not broadening their minds through interaction with other people and places. But living outside the South, I learned that people in other places have their own prejudices too. It didn't take long to see that folks who talked like me were looked down on as uneducated or laughed at as naive. Mimicking the trusted voices of the nightly news, I learned to speak as if I were from no place at all. But after forsaking my people and place, I didn't know who I was. I knew enough to know that I still needed to grow up, but without a drip line to sketch out the root system of my life, I wasn't sure where to start. Growing into our promise of stability here in Walltown, I've begun to see how much my own vocation depends on embracing the boundary lines of my people of North Carolina. Yes, we have our prejudices and our demons, a history whose ghosts still haunt us. But so does everyone else. This story is my story. Its complexities, ones that I know. Its textures are in the dirt my people have farmed and in the stories we tell one another. And that even in the draw we use to tell them, I'm not sure what I might be called to somewhere else. But here in this place, I know my vocation is to interrupt the racial segregation of Christian churches and to celebrate beloved community as an answer to our loneliness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Shannon. I'm curious how Jonathan's story connects to your own stories. Reading it at the moment I did helped me realize that I'd stretched beyond my drip line. But it didn't tell me how to get home. I'm from migrant peoples, or at least for several generations. My skin color hints at the story. We're not from here. My parents met far from where they were each born and kept moving after that. I've often thought that I inherited that rhythm, even though I spent most of my childhood in one place. A few years and a few cities before my airplane touchdown realization, I began to listen differently to the invitations to uproot. Whereas before I had suffered under the delusion that I knew what I was doing and where I was going, I now surrendered somewhat. In the words of Renita Weems, normally someone who just takes off on a journey with no earthly idea where she's going is called a vagabond, but I'm called a reverend. Like other ministers in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, Renita Weems was ordained to keep moving. She writes this about her ordaining community. Under the weight of their calloused hands, I was being sent out into an itinerant system, a wandering from coast to coast, from people to people, from charge to charge, from need to need, never staying in one place too long, but belonging to a network of believers beyond any one place. End quote. Network of believers beyond any one place. Yes, that is what I was coming aware of as I heard my call to ministry. My Universalist roots, my belief in the interdependent web. Renita Weems's ministry is rooted in the vocation of a scholar rather than a congregational leader, though she hasn't actually moved from church to church. But she embraces itinerancy as a theme for her life and ministry. It captures, quote, the inner life of growing, stretching, climbing, retreating, rambling, slumping, and soaring that the soul endures. The spiritual journey. She continues, itinerancy means living every day open, accepting what the journey brings us, relying on nothing but faith to get us from one location to the next. It is the hardest thing in the world to get accustomed to, constantly wondering whether you're getting anywhere, never sure where you ought to be, feeling as though you're wandering and circling the same spot again and again, unquote. Perhaps the wandering merchant we met in the Sterlet story earlier was suffering from the difficulty of itinerancy. Instead of accepting the shade and the delicious fruit of the giant tree and the welcome of its keeper, his mind sets to scheming. How can I use this tree to get me safely on my journey? He thinks. When first called in by the keeper of the tree, he resists. You may think this tree is very special, he says, but we can hear underneath his words, that specialness doesn't apply to me. I'm a wanderer from nowhere, going everywhere and getting nowhere. You may think this tree means something, this moment means something, this interaction means something, but I know better. Life is meaningless. The keeper of the tree, of course, is impervious to these professions of the wounded wanderer. She is steady in her faith, nourished within the drip line of her community. Knowing her own boundaries, she's also able to communicate them firmly to the merchant. No, this fruit isn't for sale, and it's not for the taking either. And yet within the firm boundary is a deep welcome and acceptance. She neither sends the merchant packing nor tries to convince him to stay. When he does move on, he's restored to his humanity. In the words of Renita Weems again, quote, "Whatever spirituality is, it is not something to be discovered. It is something to be recovered, something you misplace and recover 1,000 times in a lifetime." And often we need help to recover it. We need our community, we need the stories of our communities. Like this one, Sustaining the Tree of Life. That was, I forgot to say it earlier, that was by Lynn Gardner, our temporal ages. So I see myself in the spectrum of archetypes in that story. The itinerant on one end, the keeper of the tree on the other. I see the spectrum within Unitarian Universalism too. Our fourth principle, affirming the free and responsible search for truth and meaning, sends us out into the world, whether literally or figuratively. The second principle, affirming the acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, I think it comes the closest to naming our drip line, the congregation. The proposed eighth principle captures the whole spectrum, affirming journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community. And then it goes on to say how we do this, through actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. I see my own desire to come home in our collective movement toward the eighth principle. We've been wandering, learning how to be good guests within the drip lines of other religious and spiritual communities, though not always gracefully. We haven't felt safe at home in the religious communities that raised us, if any, and even in the Unitarian Universalism we love so well. Many of us, especially those with marginalized identities, have felt UUism's deep flaws. We are realizing together that we can trust enough to put down roots if our community is also committed to the journey towards spiritual wholeness. We practice accountability by receiving and not grasping the fruits of the journey, and in taking our turn in keeping the tree. We can remember the hospitality we've received as journeyers under others' trees and learn the practice of offering hospitality ourselves. As we unfurl our roots, we don't actually know what our new home will look like, or even where it is. But even in this wobbly world, we can renounce the restlessness and find stability with roots of love. As Renita Weems writes, not knowing where we are going forces us to pay attention to where we are. Since we don't know where there is, we have to content ourselves with here, now, this moment, this thought, this tree, this sound, this breeze, this twist in the road. May it be so. And with that, I invite you to join in what is becoming one of my favorite songs from our tradition, Find a Stillness.
Find a stillness, hold a stillness, let the stillness carry me. Find the silence, hold the silence, let the silence carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony. Seek the essence, hold the essence, let the essence carry me. Let me flower, help me flower, watch me flower, carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony.
Ah, find the stillness. Let the harmony, the spirit, the wholeness fill me. I love that song. Our church community is one of love, caring, and generosity. Together, we work for a more just world. To offer our gifts and pay our promised pledges is to say, yes, we are defined by our hearts and our deeper values. I share the plate recipient for March is Community Refugee and Immigrant Service. CRIS is an independent nonprofit organization that serves refugee and immigrant populations in Central Ohio. Their multilingual and cosmopolitan staff team offers a wide range of programs and services designed to facilitate self-sufficiency and successful acclimation for the people they serve. Regardless of your ability to contribute, we value your presence here. The offering that helps build a better church and a better community will now be gratefully received. Thank you for your generosity.
Thank you so much, Karen. I begin our caring meditation with words from the Reverend Teresa Soto entitled Finding Our Dreams. The world makes many demands on your time, your skin, your heart, until you are left gasping and wondering if you will ever do enough, have enough, be enough. Stop your counting, measuring, and checking. You are enough. So much more than enough made from fragments of the galaxy. You do measure up. And to recover from the doubt pressed upon you, the antidote for doubt is dreaming. All the dreams that call to you, lime green and frosting pink dreams, the other soft and tender dreams that run blue to gray, sky indistinguishable from lulling sea. The dreams that seem impossible, listen, that's their nature. If they had already happened, then they would be realities, solid and smooth, like the round bone home of an unbroken egg. Be brave enough to name your dream, nurture it, and allow the rhythm of your breath to bring your dreams to life. We have one caring card this morning. We send healing thoughts to Rick K. We wish him a speedy recovery from back surgery and pneumonia, which he got while hospitalized. And we have one joy that was shared in the chat. Susan C. is grateful for a wonderful visit with 3 old friends that she had not seen in years. Oh, that sounds wonderful, Susan. May we hold the joys and sorrows shared and those that are still unspoken gently in our hearts.
As we hold our thoughts and prayers gently on our hearts on this day we've been given, let us listen to our temple bell as it takes us into a moment of shared silence.
Our closing words will be familiar. And the merchant sat for a while in the shade, thinking about these ideas that felt new and a little challenging. As the sun went down, he picked up his basket and headed out of town, whistling a song he hadn't thought of in years. On his way, he shared a smile with each person he met, his heart feeling strangely light and joyful. And the people of the village, they continued to sustain the tree of life, to care for one another, and to share their gifts with grace and gratitude. May it be so for each of us.
I invite you now, if you have your candle or chalice nearby, to bring it close so we can extinguish our chalice together as we say our closing words. These words are from our vision. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of vision. As we go forth, let us heal and transform ourselves and our world through reason and love. Our chalice is extinguished.
Our spiritual practices class tomorrow will pick up on themes that we talked about today by focusing on hospitality and belonging. You can register for that class at the link in the chat box. And for more information on upcoming events, please join our email list. And if you haven't yet, please fill out your membership update form so that way we can make sure our database is as up to date as possible. Thank you. And as always, everyone is invited to our coffee hour after this service for fellowship and fun. We'll see you there. Now, if you will please join me in singing verses 2 and 4 of our closing song, I Know I Can.
When sorrow heals my soul and burdens make me strong, no troubles wait at every turn. I know I can go on. And though the journey is long, the destination is near. No troubles wait at every turn. I know I can go on.
So good. Today's worship service would not be possible without the time and care of many people. Thank you all. Special gratitude today to Reverend Lynn Gardner for writing our story, Shannon Flanders for the great readings, and Karen Thomas for the beautiful piano music. Thank you. Please join me in thanking our tech volunteers, talented musicians, and our hardworking staff team for all that they do to enrich our community every day of the week. Thank you. Thank you, Nathan. Our coffee hour discussion prompt is 2 questions. How do you find stillness in your journey? And how do you practice accountability when staying put? See you at coffee hour, and we'll be here again next week. Have a great week.